Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Play Along Journal series. This is the 39th week, and we are almost wrapped up here. So, this is the second to last journal spread in this series. And so, make sure that you go back and watch if you haven't already, if you're interested in more inspiration. So, I'm starting out in my mustard colored journal with some writing as kind of a background element. I love to use handwriting as a pattern. Just like you would use, like repetitive circles or mark making, other things like that. So, the goal for me is not to have the viewer read what I write, but I can use it kind of as a cathartic experience if I want to, just like you would normally do when you're like normal journal writing. um but this is a way that you can kind of get out those things and not have to think about it again. Just get it down on the page. So next up, I'm starting to bring in the layers. So I can have the handwriting be used, but it doesn't have to stay like the main focal thing that you see. I like to just use it as one of the elements of inspiration. So next, I used my sponge with some white gesso and just used the sponge as the marks that I used. The ink was not steadfast yet, and so when I did the gesso, it did blend with the ink a little bit, but I actually really like the look of that. It's not a pure white on top of it. It kind of mixed into its own sort of gray. I'm going to take and accentuate some of those sponge marks, and I'm using my black china marker for this. As always, I try to link the supplies that I use down in the description below. Make sure you go check that out. I also include links to other freebies or classes, stuff like that as well. So make sure you're checking out that description if you're interested. I'm going to bring in a few little collage elements to this page. I have that gold foil paper on the left-hand side, so I probably won't do much to that. So my thought is with anything that I do, I just want to kind of accentuate what's going on and kind of help bring out the specialness of that side of the page. I'm adding in some different tape and I'm using it just as another collage element. It's not necessarily tape to hold down the papers that I did, but it's as if it's a small piece of paper that already has the adhesive on it. I think a botanical element of some sort would be really fun on this page. I looked through my stash of pre-made elements and was seeing there if I had anything that would work. The one that I really liked ended up being too big, and so I'm going to draw a new one here. And so I'm just ripping out a piece of paper to size. Of course, you can draw directly on your paper on in your journal. Now, there's two reasons for me here why I chose not to do that. Number one for me is I'm not super comfortable drawing at all, realistically, non-realistically, anything. So it doesn't come as natural. But the big thing here, I think, is if I were to draw this directly onto the page itself, it would not stand out from the background enough. I think it would get lost in everything behind it. So by drawing this on another sheet of paper and pasting it down, it's actually going to stand out from what's going on behind it a little bit better. So I drew with pencil first, and now with my bold black pen, I am just kind of tracing over it. So I like the kind of sketcherly look, um, the pencil scribbles and all of that. So I'm okay with it not being real precise. I decided that it wasn't my total favorite. Maybe it was too messy. I don't remember exactly what I was thinking in that time period. I'm wondering if I did too many leaves or something like that, or maybe too wonky. For whatever reason, I decided to redraw it on the back. It might have been that the graph pattern that it was on was too busy. I can't really remember what I did here, but anyway, I decided to kind of trace that back on the other side. And now with a good sharp pair of scissors, I'm going to fussy cut around it, and that way it just stands out a little bit more. So I wanted a little bit of grunge going on, so I took my Stabilo All pencil and now with a wet paintbrush spread out some of that pigment. And at this point, I'm going to glue down my botanical element. I really love the look of it being kind of that bold black and white element on top of it, but it being a floral element versus just mark making. Adding in a few final details of mark making on this page, and that is how it came together. Now, this one has a little bit more going on to it. It took a little bit longer versus the next one is super quick. In fact, I think it may have been the quickest I've ever put together a page in the play along series here. I didn't even speed it up, so it would give us some time to talk about it. But it's all honestly, it's one of my favorite pages, I think. I think it just ends up being kind of striking. Plus, I love these blue and green kind of colors together. So I'm taking my neocolor too and drawing in some kind of wonky pebble shapes across the page. I'm leading your eye across. I'm not doing it over the entire background, and keeping it really relatively simple. Now, with my colored pencil, I'm accentuating some of those marks, giving it a little bit of an outline. You don't need to do the exact same thing to all of your shapes. You can kind of change it up if you want and see how that works for you. So I'm going to be adding a cluster onto this page that was pre-made ahead of time. And I think that's one of my biggest bonus tips that I can give throughout this whole series is to have elements made ahead of time when you're actually in the mood to make them, and then be able to pull from them and use them in your artwork. So this was made just using various scraps of paper. It looks like some fabric, some hand-dyed fabric, some store-bought fabric, and stitched together. I wanted to make sure that I had a little bit of that teal brought in. I have that sewn piece of sari ribbon on the right side, and then on the cluster itself, it has some of that teal. And so with my colored pencil, I'm just bringing in a little bit of that color. So it makes it so easy. I'm just going to now glue this cluster onto the page, and really quickly you have a page that I think looks really nice and cohesive. Now, you could do a lot more to this page. You could take it in so many different directions if you want. But if you're looking for something that's like a little quicker and maybe a little bit more simple, I think this is a really fun direction to go. So you get in and you get out, but you still feel really accomplished with what you just did. I hope that you guys loved watching today's spreads, and stay tuned for next week. It is going to be the final week of the Play Along Journal series, and I cannot wait to see you there. Hope that you have a good one. See you next time.